What's kicking, everybody? We are back for another episode of Pickin' Fights. I am Keith, joined as always by my amigo Tom. Tom, how are you today, bro?
Well, it's certainly been a little bit of time before I had a technical mistake quite as bad as we just saw there. But overall, considering UFC 286 was last night, Leon retains his belt. I think anyone who's really hardline saying that Kamaru Usman won that fight is probably biased. I think Leon won even with the fence grab. A lot of good fights on there. A absolute slobber knocker between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev, and the way that Justin Gaethje is able to just take punches, stay awake not only, but then not show that damage afterwards. I mean, Fiziev looks like he got into a fight with a chainsaw. Meanwhile, Justin Gaethje, basically looks relatively unscathed. His nose just about as swollen as it always is. A lot of good fights on there. What'd you think of 286 last afternoon?
I loved it. I like the early cards. When they do them overseas, they're a lot of fun, and the UK cards are great too. They stack them up with a lot of exciting fighters. Great to see Leon retain his title in the way that he did. A lot of people still to go back to his post-fight interview from the last time around. A lot of people were still doubting him. Still a heavy dog going into this fight. I personally did not pick him. I was one of the few people that had Justin Gaethje going into his fight against Rafael Fiziev. And that was great. That was plus money. He was plus 190 when I snagged him. So, check out like our episodes early on in the week or watch us live, because that line did move a little bit. The only way to get like those prime lines is before the rest of the public catches on. So definitely make sure you're watching us when we go live on Sundays. Listen to us on Spotify when they go up on Sundays right after we get done here, because that's the best way to snag those sweet lines. And it was fun getting Justin Gaethje at underdog money. He's not wrong. He is one of the most entertaining fighters in the UFC, if not the most entertaining. Absolute bloodbath last night. Fiziev leaking snot and blood and potentially spinal fluid out of his.
All right.
Yeah, so that was great seeing all that. And a great night overall. One fight I do want to talk about was Sam Patterson. Poor guy making his debut last night. I forget who knocked him out. Gonna have to go back and check that out. But
Yana Ashmaz.
Yes, crazy knockout. Got a couple of shots in on the ground that Mark Goddard probably should have stepped in a little bit sooner for. Just kind of let murder happen on live TV, and that was on the prelims too. So, for free on ESPN, you got to watch a murder yesterday. And then poor Sam Patterson getting up and trying to grapple with Mark Goddard and clinch him a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, listen, at that point, you would think that they would just cut the camera away from that. Like, that was hard to watch. And again, not being there for every single fight, like some people are, like, you only see what the UFC chooses to show you in that regard. So I don't know how frequently or infrequently or how long or short that kind of dazed state or trance was for him. But push come to shove, like, if you're broadcasting, get the camera off of the dude. How about that? Like, that was kind of hard to watch for a second. And probably if his family's not there, friends or family supporters at home, that's not what they want to see either. Like, show the guy celebrating. I'm sure they would like to see that. Not that much, but surely they would like to see that, the other guy celebrating more than they'd like to see poor Sam Patterson trying to throw punches at Mark Goddard.
Yeah, absolutely brutal knockout. You watch a guy lose probably a couple of years off of his life that way. I mean, it is the risk these guys take going into this sport, but it's just not necessary. And then another thing to mention, my girl Casey O'Neill unfortunately couldn't pull out the dub against Jennifer Maia yesterday. That was probably like my biggest straight bet was on Casey O'Neill money line, because they did give me a nice profit boost from FanDuel. If you bet UFC enough, then when there's UFC pay-per-views, they throw profit boosts and extra money your way to use on those. Not promoting FanDuel at all here whatsoever. Just thank you to FanDuel for that, even though it didn't pan out the way I wanted it to. And then I also had Gunnar Nelson on last week's episode by submission over Brian Barberena. So that was a nice one that panned out really well too. Plus 130 or plus 115, one of the two. That was another great bet as well. So, made a decent chunk of money yesterday, not only off of UFC, but also, off of March Madness too. Oh, had another parlay. posted this one on my Twitter, so make sure you're following over on Twitter. I had Jake Hadley by KO or submission, double chance, parlayed with Muhammad Mokaev by submission. And what a fight that was, too. Muhammad Mokaev almost getting his knee completely shattered yesterday. That was
not almost. I think he did. I think he did get his knee completely shattered. He just didn't tap to it in the same way that Tony Ferguson is in full locked in positions and submissions that just doesn't tap to it. Muhammad, although there was a tap in that fight, and it's clear all over Twitter that Muhammad Mokaev did tap. It was because he was coming into that with a shoulder injury. I think the UFC said that they would pay to get it surgically reconstructed. He didn't want to have that happen. So he tried to rehab it. And there was a point in this fight where Rafael Filho pulled on that. I guess it was the right shoulder, but pulled on it with his left side, pulled on the shoulder. And you can see very clear, and I'll try and pull it up for the folks, but you can very clearly see Muhammad Mokaev like tapping on the backside. And then just nobody saw it. And then the fight just kind of continued. Let me see if I can pull that up.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that. That's crazy. He has no striking whatsoever. It's kind of sad. He has striking that's gotten him to the number 12 rank in the flyweight division. But, he's got to improve his hands quite a bit. A lot of what he does is just like those little 1-2 feint combinations, try and show the opponent something. But anybody that fights Muhammad Mokaev knows instantly what his game plan is to take you down. And then Fila yesterday tried to, butt scoop back to the fence. And then even there, Muhammad Mokaev, with that busted up knee, busted up leg, was able to finally sink in that rear naked choke by mustering up enough strength in that leg and, stop Filo from being able to spin out of that rear naked choke. He's a great grappler. I'll give him that. It's just the rest of the game.
I'm trying to find it, but it seems like the UFC may have removed it. Any of the tweets that I had bookmarked where it showed it says that this media has now been removed for copyright. Ooh. So, pretty interesting.
It's a conspiracy.
Pretty interesting, but listen, we got a show to do, so I can't necessarily look forward and find it now. But the people at home, if you're watching, try and give that a Google. Let us know in the comment section if you are able to actually find video. Tag us. We have our information right here. Hold on.
God bless you.
Thank you. We have our information right here. If you can find that video of Muhammad Mokaev tapping from what looked to be just like a shoulder crank on an injured shoulder, let us know down in the comments. Send it to us on Twitter. We'd love to see it. And with that being said, also while you're here, give us a like, share the video, tell a friend, be a friend. But yeah, appreciate you pulling up second week in a row, Cam. Yeah, his knee is jacked. That's something I can show you. That picture that this is a good one right here. Here we go. This one right here. You could see that the hyperextended knee right there going right over, I guess, the pelvis or the hip. It's absolutely in S shape here. And you could just see the crank on it as it's on this part. Absolutely. You could see it in his face. And even after he had got out in that position, he was going around and he was, grimacing, visibly grimacing in positions that he shouldn't have been in pain in. So you could tell that, like you said, Cam, his knee is absolutely jacked up. And, we probably won't see him for a while. But at the end of the day, he kept his, 9-0 perfect record intact. But it's after things like that, even if you don't tap, knee injuries like that, people don't always come back the same. So with that being said,
that's going to mess up his track too. He really wanted to be on that John Jones track, being the youngest champion in the UFC. He was trying to break that record. This is going to put him out for a while, just like Cam said. So that's going to be tough. Sorry to cut you off.
No, and it's going to put him out for a while. And when he comes back, is he going to be the same? Is he going to be the same?
No, maybe not.
There's pictures of him after that fight where he's not standing on his knee, which is understandable. But again, the hyper-extendedness, I guess, of that knee, I know that's probably not a word and definitely doesn't sound super technical. But, that's the kind of thing that can make that knee never be the same. And for a guy who is a grappler like Muhammad Mokaev, that is a devastating injury to have. Kamaru, it's not without being able to be overcame. Look at Kamaru Usman, had a very fantastic career with terrible knees. But, It's hard to say. Cam goes, his ego might have just ruined his career, perhaps, right? Would it have been better to take that loss and then work back with more of a healthier knee, or to completely annihilate your knee, keep your undefeated thing intact? Now, listen, what he did prove is that he's got that dog in him and he's not going to quit, and he's going to go out and he's going to try, and the ability to fight out of that position, turn around, and then get the rear naked choke and still win that fight says a lot about him. So I wouldn't necessarily say that his ego might have ruined his career. It's all going to be dependent on what happens with that knee, how bad it is, can he rehab it, and can he showed, at least this far, he's got the mental fortitude to just withstand pain and keep going forward. So we'll see what happens with that. But really, really interesting and sad from Muhammad Mokaev and Rafael Filho. Like I said in my video, I was picking Mokaev, but it, plus 650 minus 1,000 for Mokaev was far too much of a line for a guy who in Filo, I think, was like a Cage Fury champion before this, and
Yeah.
had a great record.
Yeah, best thing going for Mokaev is that he's young. That's really it. I mean, you're already talking busted up shoulder, busted up knee. He is young. He's going to have to take a little bit of time off, but it is crazy too, though. Yeah, he's a minus 1,000 favorite, and yet, you look at his two most probable methods of decision, of victory, decision and submission, and the submission victory, it was like plus 105 when it came to betting lines. So that's weird too. I think that might have been to like spook people out a little bit, or scare them away from betting on Mokaev or something. And then you look a little bit deeper, and there's sweeter lines elsewhere. But yeah, that's about enough for Muhammad Mokaev. We spent enough time talking about him. What do you say we dive into this pretty nice card upcoming this Saturday?
Absolutely, and I said it in the description of this video. Listen, this bout, this card, aside from the top main event, maybe the co-main event, doesn't have the name value, doesn't have the notoriety, I guess, of some of the more recent cards. But listen, there was a good stretch there where none of these cards had really some name value at all. So, I feel like we're maybe spoiled with riches a little bit recently, but there are some good fights on this card. You're going through here. You got Marlon, Vera, and Corey Sandhagen. That's absolutely going to be a banger. I can't wait to break that one down with you and tell you my pick. Holm and Yana Santos. I have some interesting thoughts on that one as well. Nate Landwehr is a train. Nate the Train, Nate the Tank, whatever you want to call it. His last fight with O'Day Osborne was absolutely fantastic and was a slobber knocker. If you haven't seen that, I highly recommend you do that. We fall off a little bit with the Andrea Lee Maycee Barber fight. But Manel Cap is a interesting prospect coming up. Alex Perez doesn't typically he does lose a fair bit, so we could be seeing a finish here. Chidi Njokuani is one of the best strikers. He's super fucking long. We're 13 minutes in. I can curse now. Chidi Njokuani, he's super long, super quick, one of the best strikers in the league. 80-inch reach at middleweight. So, 6'3", I think Duraev is 5'11". So that's going to be really interesting there. And there's some other stuff to go through here. So I'm excited for the card. I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually going to be in San Diego next week when this is going on. I'm going to have to sneak away and watch it somewhere. It starts at 4 p.m. Eastern. So 1 p.m. for me in San Diego. So, I don't know how much I'll be able to get away and watch, but I'm going to have to set a timer and make sure I watch Marlon Vera versus Corey Sandhagen.
Oh yeah.
What are your initial thoughts on this card next week?
I'm looking forward to the main event, but I think there's money to be made all throughout, and that's why we're here. So definitely make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. Also, speaking of being spoiled of riches and being in the location where fights are taking place, should we tell the people what we're doing in May, Tom?
UFC 288. We will be in attendance. We should see. I don't even know how to go about it. If anyone has been to big UFC pay-per-views before where they do pre-fight press conferences, let us know. I'm interested. I would get to that press conference too if we can. I mean, we're gonna have the return as of right now. Henry Cejudo taking on Aljo. We got Charles and Bronx Oliveira and Benil. That's gonna be great.
That's the one I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah, that's going to be a phenomenal fight. Bryce Mitchell's on the card. Crow Gracie's on the card. Chaos Williams on the card. A lot of really good fights that we're really looking forward to. Andre Petrosky, hometown guy. This is his area, so it would make sense that he's going to be there. A lot of good stuff on the horizon. So we can't wait for that. We'll probably have some really good content for that in the weeks leading up to it in preparation. But yeah, anyone who's watching, if you've been to a UFC pay-per-view, a numbered card before, and you know how, or if there's anything we got to do to get to that press conference, let us know in the comments. Reach out to us on Twitter because we'd love to be able to be there. And yeah,
I got you. I already got you,
awesome.
bro. Yeah.
Awesome.
They've done plenty at MSG, pretty close to
Oh,
home.
right,
So
true.
I know how to work my way in there, and
Yeah, let's
maybe some signing events as well. So
absolutely.
and then if you're going to be there as well too, let us know. You could tweet at us on Twitter. If you want to hang out beforehand, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of spots to grab some suds, get a couple of sodas in you before you get in, and they're $30 a pop. But just let us know if you're going to be there. We like to meet people, that support the show and everything. So I'm pumped for that one. I've told basically everybody I know, anybody that's willing to listen, anybody that was watching the card yesterday, that I know of, I was like, hey, by the way, I'm going to UFC 288. I'm pumped. Had to sign up for the pre-sale like months, not months, but like a month in advance. And I'm stoked. I can't wait for that. But in the meantime, we've got a couple of good cards. We have this one. We've got, another pay-per-view next week. Just take all my money, UFC. We've got the Miami pay-per-view next week, and then a couple of weeks two fight night cards in between, and then the 288. So I can't wait.
It'll be here before you know it, for sure.
Oh man, and it'll be summer, and it's gonna be nice out. I can't wait, dude. All right, but let's dive into this. What do we got by way of prelim notables?
All right, so for the prelim notables, I'm going to start it off with a fight right here at the bottom of the card. I'm going with this Manel Torres Trey Ogden fight, and I thought it was particularly interesting because when you go back and you look at Trey Ogden and his experience inside of the UFC and outside of the UFC, no finishes or wins by KO TKO. So striking is definitely not a particular strong suit of Trey Ogden's. He's a guy who's going to go out there, and he's fought to decisions before. He's lost split decisions with Jordan Levitt, where a lot of that fight happened predominantly on the feet. And Jordan Levitt, if that's the quality of striking that you are, losing close decisions to, it doesn't spell a lot for you. Jordan Levitt's a guy who likes to get in there and get you on the ground and beat you up on the ground. And, the level of striking that we've seen inside of the UFC and even out of the UFC from Trey Ogden, I think is going to be a big problem when he's going up against Manuel Torres. El Loco, 13-2. He's got 6 wins by KO. 6 wins by submission, 1 by decision. He's got 2 losses by submission, but I wouldn't be super concerned about those because as we've gotten into the UFC and gotten better, his ground game has looked increasingly better. He's got 2 losses, 1 by a knee bar, 1 by a heel hook, a little earlier in his career, 2018 and 2019. But coming into this fight now at 27 years old, entering his prime, 5'7", 73-inch reach, I think he's going to have all of the tools necessary to be able to get it done. I think he's more well-rounded. At 33 years old, I don't think Trey Ogden is going to be particularly improving, not at the 156-pound division, and to be going up against a guy who has all of the tools and the skills like Manuel Torres. He's going to be roughly about the same size, a little bit more of a reach, but it's similar enough to where I really don't care. But I think Manuel Torres has all the tools rather to get this one done, and I think Trey Ogden has a glaring weakness in his game. I think Manuel Torres is going to be able to keep it on the feet if he so chooses, be able to get that knockout. If he can't get it on the feet, or if he can't get the knockout, and if it does actually go to the ground, I like his ability down there as well. So I'm going with Manuel Torres as my first prelim notable on the card. What do you think about that one, Keith?
I like it a lot. I like your prelim notables for the most part, and I'm going to have to tell you with this one, I like the pick. What's your next one?
I also got CJ Vergara taking on Daniel Da Silva. Daniel Da Silva is talked about as maybe one of the most exciting 0-3 prospects in the UFC. But the reality of the situation is he's a guy who can look for submission over position. And in the UFC, he's yet to actually get one of those submissions. But when he finds himself going for the submission, he can end up out of position and losing via TKO by ground and pound, like what happened with Victor Altamirano. Francisco Figueiredo, he got himself submitted in his own knee bar after threatening. And then, Jeff Molina, El Jefe, has been in the news lately. In this case, he got knocked out by him. So Daniel Da Silva at 26 years old has, taken significant damage, been knocked out before. He hasn't shown a terribly strong chin. And when it comes to the submission game, sure, he's very threatening, but also a lot of the guys in the UFC who are of that caliber find a way to get out, and he leaves himself into a bad position, which he doesn't always recover from. Actually, very rarely he does. At 26 years old, he can still be improving, but he showed a lot of holes in his game that make me really concerned in this fight with a guy like CJ Vergara. CJ Guevara, 31 years old, in his prime, getting a little bit better. Peter Spratt Muay Thai coming in. I think he's going to probably be the stronger guy. He's going to have the bigger build on him. He's only giving up 2 inches of reach, but I don't think that's going to matter too much. This is a guy who's got 6 wins by KO, TKO. His last fight, he lost via armbar to Tatsuro Taira. That's not a bad loss. Clayton Rodriguez, he's got the split decision win, and also Ode Osborne is the guy that he lost to. And Ode Osborne, at this caliber of opponent, I'm not as concerned with. Knees to the body, finishes by punches and flying knees and strikes in Fury FC, which is a good promotion. A lot of times, if you're served up Ode Osborne on their UFC debut, taking that loss is not going to look too bad, especially when you're able to go back and trade and lose a decision to Ode. But you're able to hang in there. You get a win over Clayton Rodriguez, and you get thrown a prospect like Tatsuo Taira. Yeah, okay, you take that loss, armbar in the second round. I think taking a big step down in competition here is going to spell a victory for CJ Vergara. I think CJ Vergara is going to have the ability. I don't think he's going to submit Daniel Da Silva, but that possibility is always on the table. I think this is probably a situation where we're going to see Daniel Da Silva maybe go after a submission, maybe get in a good position, maybe even lock something up. But we're going to see CJ Vergara get out of it and maybe land some heavy shots, ground and pound on the ground, and ultimately finish it down there. So that's going to be my prediction. It's going to be CJ Vergara, Carlos Vergara by TKO in maybe the second or third round by ground and pound. What do you thought?
Yeah, I like that pick. I like CJ Vergara a lot. And, you hit the nail on the head when you said the step down of competition is huge. So I'm going to tail you on that one too.
Awesome. I have one more, and this one isn't as much of a lock as much as it's more one of those prelim notables that I want to make sure everybody's tuned in for and watching. And it's going to be Trevin Giles taking on Preston Parsons. And the reason for that is because Trevin Giles, the problem, he's been in the UFC for a little bit now. We look at his 5 on in. He has the KO win, TKO over Bevan Lewis. He's got the win over Roman Dolidze, which really ages well, right? Give Roman Dolidze his first loss. He's got the loss to Dricus du Plessis, where he was actually doing well in the first round, as a lot of people can tend to do against Dricus du Plessis. And then as it gets in the second round, Dricus, was able to just knock him out with a beautiful right cross. I think because Trevin Giles has a little bit of this style to where he can keep his hands down, he leaves himself open. But a similar thing happened to Michael Moraes, and then he came back with a nice win over Louis Koske 6 months ago. I think Trevin Giles is really good on the ground. Not to where he's going to go there and he's going to be threatening a ton, but he does have a really solid ground game too. When he was going up against, Dricus du Plessis, Dricus would be in good positions and Trevin Giles would reverse it and find himself in a good position. I've watched a couple of fights here from Trevin Giles, and consistently on the ground, he finds himself in bad positions, doesn't freak out, stays within himself, and then eventually gets out and then finds himself in a dominant position. I wouldn't say that is a strength. He is by and large a striker, and that's why he has that comfortability factor to be able to keep his hands down around his waist a little bit. And sometimes he can get almost too much into the flow state where he forgets to protect himself, which ultimately is what leads him to get knocked out. Against Preston Parsons fight against Evan Elder. Evan Elder is a guy who was making his UFC debut on short notice, and he did really well, but Evan Elder was a guy who was winning on the feet, and then when it went to the ground, Preston Parsons has really heavy top game power or pressure on the ground. So I think that's where he was able to get that win over Evan Elder. And I just don't know if he's going to be able to have the same success on the ground in that top position against a guy like Trevin Giles, who has a lot of really creative sweeps and knows that if you try to posture up on him, he's going to bump, he's going to create separation, he's going to find a way to get out from under you. So I think when it comes to the ground game here, Preston Parsons probably has the better top pressure, but I expect Trevin Giles to be able to get out of some of those more precarious situations and get this fight back to the feet in a way that Evan Elder wasn't able to do. And once it's on the feet, I think Trevin Giles is going to have some success there. So I'm going to say Trevin Giles is going to win this one by decision. Reason being is he's going to be a little bit longer. He's going to have the advantage in the striking. And if it does get to the ground, I think Trevin Giles has a decent takedown defense to be able to thwart maybe 1 or 2 or 20% maybe of the takedowns of Preston Parsons. And then the ones where Preston actually does get him to the ground, I think Trevin is going to be able to get out from under there. Now, this is a really risky one because, like I said, if he's not able to get out from under there, or it takes him too long to get out from under there, the judges may give it to Preston Parsons on a decision. So this is one where it's really hard to say what's going to happen. I don't think a submission ultimately gets locked up here. I think what's going to happen is we're going to see this, maybe from a TKO ground and pound win by Preston Parsons. I would say probably Trevin Giles is going to get the finish, or Preston Parsons is going to win by decision. I also think Trevin Giles could get the decision if he doesn't put Preston Parsons away, but gets up enough from those ground advances, gets up enough and lands on the feet to where Preston feels that he needs to continue to try and go after the takedown. That could get him more and more tired as the fight goes on. I'm going to go with Trevin Giles ever so slightly here. It is near even. The people on Tapology are really heavy on Giles. So for the even amount of money that you're receiving back and the advanced, I guess the step up in competition for Preston Parsons, and it comes to a UFC caliber opponent who's not coming in on short notice, I think Trevin Giles is going to be able to get out of those grappling exchanges. He's better on the feet, so I'm going with Trevin Giles.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm a Trevin Giles guy. I like him. I have one that I want to talk about real quick. It's the main event of the prelims. It's Daniel Pineda versus Tucker Lutz. I'm going with Tucker Lutz here. He is a minus 250 favorite. Curious to see what the decision lines look like, because he is more of a decision victory fighter. He's really good at point striking, grappling really well. And then Daniel Pineda, on the other hand, has not fought in the UFC for 2 years. Last fight in 2020, I believe. That was a loss to Cub Swanson, got knocked out. His only win in the UFC is against Herbert Burns, who, sticking by your rule of one sibling can be really good, and the other guy is a little bit more lackluster. Herbert Burns is that lackluster sibling. Gilbert being the really good one. Just something to look out for. Daniel Pineda, not a lot of UFC experience, focusing more on grappling over the past couple of years. And then Tucker Lutz, on the other hand, came in to the UFC off of 2 wins in the Contender Series, a little over 2 years ago. So while he was in the Contender Series, Daniel Pineda was almost making his exit from the UFC. Tucker Lutz, last fight, a loss to Pat Sabatini. But, this feels like they're trying to exhaust Daniel Pineda's contract as well. So I do like the Tucker Lutz pick quite a bit here. Just guy with, more activity coming in against a guy who hasn't fought in the UFC in 2 years and has been primarily grappling. Last loss and knockout. Might be enough time for his chin to recover, maybe not. So I'm rolling with Tucker Lutz there over Daniel Pineda. All right, ready? What do you like?
So I mean, listen, I think for Daniel Pineda, otherwise known as Jacked, I'm losing the guy's name. Jack Pete Davidson. Listen, that layoff is going to be a lot for him. Also these fights here got overturned. I would have to look into why. I would suggest, just by looking at kind of the way the guy looks right there, maybe some performance enhancing things. I don't want to throw out any accusations, but guy's looking pretty shredded there. Then when you have 2 back-to-back, fights that end up being overturned, one could only have a certain assumption. He's got the win over Herbert Burns from the crucifix, right? 2.5 years ago, lost to Cub Swanson. So obviously has a bit of a chin issue there. And then the accidental eye probe from Andre Philly, taking 1.5 years off. Could be, like you said, just something to exhaust the contract. But again, because of the Daniel Pineda, when you look at, kind of some of his history at 37, he's definitely aging. He has the ability to get it done in a variety of different ways, has the experience in Bellator, in UFC, in the PFL. Against a guy like Tucker Lutz, I think that is probably a safer pick here. But I just kind of want to stay away from it because, again, when guys take a long time off, that's almost always a negative. But it just provides so much unknown that I would stay away from it personally.
Yeah, hey, fair. All right, ready to jump into this main card?
All right, let's do the main card.
All right. First up, we got Chidi and Njokuani versus Albert Duraev. I am riding with Chidi, bang, bang, and Njokuani for a couple of reasons. Real power from Chidi, extreme power. Last couple of fights, he's 4-1. Last fight was a loss to RoboCop, but RoboCop was doing that to everybody. around these guys and like the Albert Duraev skill level, like Dushko Todorovic, Marc-Andre Barrios, these guys, Chidi's getting it done. And Albert Duraev really took a beating the last time around, too, against Joaquin Buckley, not even a year ago. But, I mean, he absorbed a lot of strikes in that fight. When you have a guy with fast hands, slick combinations, and a lot of power, it does not spell a good night for Albert Duraev. And then you look at the size comparison of these two men, too. 6'3" Chidi versus 5'11" Albert, and 80-inch reach advantage as opposed to 75. That's over 5 inches in reach advantage. I think Chidi and Njokuani is going to either knock Albert Duraev out or have a similar outcome to the Joaquin Buckley fight where he just annihilates Albert Duraev's face. That's a good one to look back on. If you like disgusting MMA post-fight pictures, like the Rafael Fiziev one yesterday, that's how Albert Duraev's face looked after he fought Joaquin Buckley. There's really not a lot of defense from Albert Duraev. His plan when people are punching him is rather than put his hands up is just to try and eat them. Just take it on the chin every single time. Roll with the punches. So I'm going with Chidi and Njokuani. I think the size is big, the power is big, and then the lack of defense from Albert Duraev is big. What do you think here, Tom?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Listen, the big thing about Albert Duraev that you were saying is that his face shows damage, kind of the opposite of Justin Gaethje. And Chito Njokuani is a long guy, a quick guy who throws elbows and spinning attacks that I would be concerned about Albert Duraev coming into this when his eyes swell up or he starts bleeding from a particular area. And then, that it impacts whether it's your breathing or your style or your vision or what have you. I would get really concerned there. Also, Albert Duraev is a guy who is strong in the grappling. As a Russian, that's not a shocker, but he's also a guy who doesn't take a step back and he'll still continue to come forward. And a guy against a long, fast, powerful guy like Chidi Njokuani, that's a very detrimental skill set to have because Chidi can just run around on the outside, throw those long kicks, beat up your legs. Then when you get a little bit more stationary, come in, throw 1, 2, maybe lead into like some sort of elbow, especially in on a clinch. If Duraev's going to try and clinch and get Chidi down, Chidi has pretty good takedown defense and throws those massive elbows from inside there. So I would be really concerned coming in this fight as an Albert Duraev better. So I'm not going to be one, and I'm going to put my money on Chidi Njokuani. Albert Duraev being Russian, he is extremely tough. So betting on the fact that he's going to get knocked out is a little bit of a stretch for me. At minus 195, I don't hate the Chidi Njokuani money line bet. If you can get him like technical, if you can get him like TKO decision, no bet, and just increase that line a little bit more for you. So maybe it'll probably only be like maybe 175. Maybe it might not even be much better because nobody's expecting Chidi Njokuani to go out there and get the submission. But at minus 185, minus 175, I don't really mind that line. So I would go with Chidi on this one.
Yeah, I think he's a solid pick in this fight. Next up, Alex Perez versus Manel Kape, and I'm going with Manel, star boy here. Alex Perez has a weird history. We were talking about it before we started the show, Tom. A lot of canceled bouts for Alex Perez. A little strange. Some weird stuff going on there. Not just his fault. You're supposed to fight Kai Kara-France earlier this year, and Kai Kara was injured. But I just think big power out of Manel Kape. He's a guy that really emerged in the UFC, and he has some solid wins, like the win over Zaglas Zumagulov. And a good win over Ode Osborne with that flying knee. That was really what kind of put him on the map a little bit. Super creative with his striking, super strong. And he's been staying pretty active. Like his last fight was 2 months ago, as opposed to Alex Perez. Well, 7 months ago he was choked out by Alex Pantoja. But before that, just a little bit of inactivity over from Alex Perez. But I like the creativity of Manel Kape here. And I like the strength coming out of, coming from his hands quite a bit. So I'm going with Manel Kape here. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, I hear you. I think the big glaring weakness here is that Manel Kape is strong on the feet where Alex Perez doesn't necessarily exhibit that same strength. And when it comes to the ground game, I think Manel Kape is better in that regard too. You just look at it, I know MMA math doesn't necessarily work, but styles make fights. And up against Alexandre Pantoja, Manel Kape ended up going to decision with him, was able to fight out of some of those more precarious grappling positions, whereas Alex Perez eventually succumbed to them. So I think Manel Kape is going to be a little bit more well-rounded on the ground and be able to find his way out. He's also going to be the stronger guy. He's going to be the longer guy. And I think he's from the better gym. He's training at the UFC PI. And I think that matters for something. So for all those reasons, I think Manel Kape's also the better athlete here. He's absorbed a little bit less damage up until this point. He's a little bit younger. He's definitely a little bit quicker, has more power in his hands. I think every way you're looking at this, I see Manel Kape minus 230. See, the thing is, I'm not exactly sure how it's going to be able to get done. I don't think Manel Kape is going to get the submission because I think he is more of a better at defense of those submission things than actually going and being offensive on the ground himself. He does have 5 submission wins to his name, but most recently in the UFC, you talk about flying knee finishes, punches, finishes, decision finishes. I don't even think he definitely doesn't even have I say definitely, like I know, whereas I'm just looking at this now, but his submission finishes are coming out of Ryzen, coming out of, not the UFC quality opponents. So for those reasons, I'm going to say like the finish or decision is what it's going to be for Manel Kape, but I would give him the opportunity to go out there and get this one done because of that power in his hands. And when you look at the Tapology voters, they would agree with me, or maybe I'm agreeing with them.
Yeah, well, that is what we like to call a super lock, right? Yeah, I like Manel here quite a bit. Also, Cam said in the comments, Chidi is going to be too fast. He's taking him to Jab City 100%. He's going to use that long reach to just snap off jabs on Albert Duraev's face the whole night. All right.
You could almost like picture it, right? You could almost picture him like kind of with one foot on the back line, just kind of walking around, circling off, just firing off long jabs that Albert Duraev is not going to be able to do anything with because it's just constantly staying in a range where Chidi can hit him and Albert Duraev can't, and he's not going to have the footwork to be able to cut off the corner and back Chidi up to where he can get the takedown. And if he does try to get the takedown, I think he's going to shoot in up against the cage, and that's going to just give Chidi more of an opportunity to stay standing or hit him with those knees or elbows and cut him open.
Yeah. Yo, you kind of scared me throwing those jabs. Also, I don't know if you just saw the ad that you were getting on the side of Tapology. That was
Hims is following me all the way around, like following me everywhere.
Yeah, getting Viagra ads on Tapology, bro. That's something, man. That's something.
Hey.
No,
everyone needs a little boost from now and then.
All right, next up we got Andrea Lee with against Maycee Barber. And this is a fight that really benefits Maycee Barber. The UFC was really trying to push her super hard, nicknamed the Future. She believed it. I know there was a point in time when Dana White really believed it as well.
You know who else was nicknamed the Future?
Who?
Sam Patterson.
Oh, no shit.
And Ian Gary.
Oh,
and I'm sure those are just the ones that are coming to my mind right now.
Right. Yeah, I did know Ian Gary now that you mention it. But I do like a lot about Maycee Barber. I mean, I'm still mad at her, and it's not her fault. But there was a split decision against Miranda Maverick like a year and a half ago. And yeah, that was complete and total robbery. Miranda Maverick won that fight. But there's a lot I like about Maycee Barber. Young, good wrestling ability. I guess on paper, beating a great wrestler like Miranda Maverick. And then Montana De La Rosa, great wrestlers, beating them by decision. She trains on her Tapology page. It says Fort Collins Martial Arts Academy. But she trains out of, where does Uriah Faber coach again? Team Alpha Male?
Team Alpha Male.
Yeah, so she trains out of Team Alpha Male.
Alpha Female.
Yeah, she Team Alpha Woman. She's just a good all-around fighter, and I think that this is a nice fight for her because Andrea Lee really doesn't bring much to the table. Both women do have losses to Roxanne Modafferi, but I think where Andrea Lee has like some pretty decent hands, Maycee Barber, she owns the wrestling and she does have decent hands herself. I think it's going to be a decision win for Maycee Barber, just pure wrestle fucking. So what do you got, Tom?
Yeah, I have to agree with a lot of what you said. Maycee Barber, she's younger. She's just a little bit better in basically every area. She's better on the ground. She's better on the feet. She's better in the scramble. She's better against the cage. Andrea Lee may be slightly faster, but I think Maycee Barber has the more aggressive output. And at 24 years old, we're going to see Maycee Barber, who already has some pretty decent UFC and MMA experience. We're just going to see her improve at a more more active clip here than Andrea KGB, who's coming in at 34 years old in the 125-pound division. It's going to be a little bit longer. So the ability to potentially pop that jab out there and manage distance is going to initially side with her. But I think Maycee Barber, in kind of a Merab Dvalishvili type way, who's just going to go after those takedowns and recklessly pursue that, I think is ultimately where it's going to end up being better for her. I think, she has competent stand-up. Maybe Andrea Lee, and I know I said that Maycee Barber maybe was better in every area. If there was any one area that I would give Andrea Lee an advantage ever so slightly, it would be in the stand-up. But I think because of the relentless pressure and the fear of the takedown coming back from Maycee Barber and what she can do in terms of ground and pound and top pressure once she does get there is what's going to keep Andrea Lee kind of off balance and out of a rhythm. And I think Maycee Barber is just going to have that relentless pursuit of the takedown. And ultimately that's what's going to get her there. I think, like I said, Andrea Lee, I like her, but she's just 1 degree worse than Maycee Barber at this point, a little bit older. She's decent in both areas, but not great in any particular area. And if Maycee Barber does get Andrea Lee to the ground, I think you're going to see Maycee Barber being on top, landing a lot of vicious ground and pound. I don't know that it will be finished. I have this one as a high decision probability, but I think Maycee Barber is going to be able to get her to the ground, get that decision time, be far and away above on the strikes count, just because she's on top and she's going to be throwing punches up there. Whether it's landing or doing too much or really banging up Andrea Lee too much, that remains to be seen. But I think Maycee Barber has the tools to get this one done, and that's why she's a -210 favorite. So Maycee Barber, take her money line. I would maybe even take her by decision. I'm not sure how much better that line would look. I could try and look it up and let the folks know.
Yeah, I think by decision is the most likely outcome, but Vegas knows that too. So I think you probably only see it go from like -210 to like -190 or something like that. But if Maycee Barber can't pull off a win here against Andrea Lee, then she certainly is not the future. She does not live up to her nickname. Which would be unfortunate because, again, she is young. She was highly touted for quite a bit there. And, things haven't, her last 3 fights are really going her way, but midway through her UFC career, losing to Roxanne Modafferi, that's not a great look. So next up, we got Nate Landwehr versus Austin Lingo. You ready for this one, Tom?
Yes, I am.
All right. Well, I will never bet against Nate Landwehr again in my entire life. He absolutely proved me wrong with his fight against David Onama. Oh, my God, what a scrap that was. Easily a sleeper for Fight of the Year for 2022. I don't think that one got enough credit because David Onama and Nate the Train are not like these big names in the sport right now. Although Nate Landwehr did kind of emerge a little bit more, for the more casual side of it. I hate the term casual, when it comes to UFC, but because the second you give an opinion that somebody doesn't agree with, they're going to be in your Twitter mentions calling you a casual. From
experience.
Yeah, even when they have Habib as their GOAT. But yeah, Nate Landwehr, just incredible fighter. You want to talk about showing, you got that dog in you. He was basically out on his feet against David Onama and rallied back to exhaust David Onama with his striking. Won that fight. David Onama put it all out there in the first round, and then it was just a slugfest after that. Nate Landwehr is, I think if we were still in a time when like Vikings were running the world, like Nate Landwehr doesn't look like a Viking, but I think that he'd be a major problem if we were still in like those really barbaric times, because this is a guy that could take a beating, hand a beating back out, super tough, super violent. I'm all about Nate Landwehr this week. I will never bet against him ever again, because I remember saying into that David Onama fight that he was not going to get it done there. He proved me wrong. Against a guy like Austin Lingo, he hasn't really faced the same level of competition as Nate Landwehr. And, I think they're setting this up for another exciting fight. Every Nate Landwehr fight is an exciting fight from here on out to me. His win over Ludovic Klein was pretty good. Darren Elkins pulling a win out over a guy named The Danger, right? That's his name, The Danger? No, Damage.
The Damage.
Yeah. I'm a Nate Landwehr guy now. He made a fan out of me in that David Onama fight, so I can't bet against Nate Landwehr. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, and I think Austin Lingo is just has a glaring hole in his game. Like he's more of a grappler, but does not have very convincing stand up much at all. And against UFC caliber competition, Luis Saldana was, he got that unanimous decision win there, but I think Luis Saldana had some holes in his game. Now, Austin Lingo, I guess I shouldn't say that he's got a glaring weakness. He is pretty well rounded. Luis Saldana was the guy who had a glaring weakness in his game, and that's what allowed Austin Lingo to get to victory on some of the stand up here. But I think Nate Landwehr is a guy who truly doesn't have a weakness in his game, as at least compared to Austin Lingo. He's going to be much more well-rounded than Luis Saldana was. He's got a pretty solid grappling, and as we saw against Ode Osborne, he's got good combinations. He's got a great chin, and he's got a really good durability and ability to fight through some of that pain. And even if he is losing a fight, he doesn't get discouraged. He fights back, and he can ultimately come to win that. And the reason that he was able to stay awake and on his feet and semi-coherent and able to land those shots against Ode Osborne was in part due to his conditioning. So I really like Nate Landwehr for all those reasons. I think he's going to be faster and have more power on his feet. I also think he's going to have solid enough grappling to keep the fight on the feet if that's what he so chooses. If it goes to the ground, I think he's a little bit more of the bigger and more imposing guy, at least from a muscular and a build perspective, that would allow him to have some success on the ground as well. So I'm rolling with you. I agree. Nate the Train Landwehr is a guy that is must-watch television, appointment television for the UFC. Training out of MMA Masters, I'm going to have to give him this one this week. In terms of how I think it's going to get done, Austin Lingo traditionally has been semi-durable, and so I was going to lean towards decision, kind of with the way Tapology is. So Nate Landwehr getting the win by decision seems pretty probable. I actually have a lot of these fights going to decision, and we have 2 more upcoming. Let's see if that remains the trend.
All right, next up, sorry, kind of spaced out there for a second. Next up, we have Holly Holm versus Yana Santos, formerly Yana
Kunitskaya.
I think she had a baby like a year ago. I'm almost
I think she fighting, and then she came out that she was pregnant, like a little bit too. Jesus Christ, Hims, leave me alone. Speaking of babies, didn't she like have a fight? And then like 3 months later, it's like, hi, I'm 4 months pregnant. And it's like, wait, hold on. This math ain't math in here, girl. Were you fighting pregnant? And then, there was apparently, and I just found this out, that every female fighter has to actually submit to a pregnancy test before fighting, which makes sense, right? Like, I didn't think about it, but like, probably shouldn't be fighting while growing another human.
Right. If you're going to get punched and kicked in the stomach, that would make a lot of sense. Trying to think of different mothers that we've seen come back after giving birth and then fighting again. I was going to say Amanda Nunes, but that's not the case for her.
Jessica Pena.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah.
I actually birthed my daughter.
Oh, yeah, that's
Jesus,
right.
Okay.
Yeah, she came back after her baby was born and won. I don't think it's going to go that way for Yana. I mean, I'm going to have to get used to saying that. Yana Santos.
Juliana Pena. Sorry, not Jessica. I'm an idiot. Juliana Pena. I knew that didn't sound right as I said it, but
we all knew what you meant. Yana Kunitskaya had such a nice flow to it. Now you have to get used to saying Yana Santos. That's one less single UFC female fighter out there on the market for all you lonely fellows at home watching this. But yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty technical kickboxing match. Holly Holm, last fight was a loss coming to Ketlen Vieira. And there was a lot of stuff that Ketlen Vieira did really well there to neutralize Holly Holm's. I think her kicks are like the staple of her game. And there was a lot that Ketlen Vieira did to close distance, clinch against the cage really well. I don't think that Yana Santos, I keep going to say Yana Kunitskaya. But I don't think that she presents like the same type of offensive strategy here for Holly Holm that Ketlen Vieira did. And I think Holly Holm is going to go out there and literally kick the shit out of her. So I'm rolling with Holly Holm here. There's not much to say, right? Like, we all know what Holly Holm can do. Training out of Jackson Wink. She's a perennial UFC fighter, right? Been around for quite some time now. And 41 years old and still doing it. I think, is it too soon to say that she's potentially like the female equivalent of Wonder Boy?
Well, their fights are a little bit different, but I could see where you're going with that. They're predominantly stand-up strikers that have a heavy focus on defending a takedown. They're intelligent with their striking. They're able to do it late into their careers. She has good kicks, but she's primarily a boxer, being about from having a professional boxing background.
Right.
Here's my concern for Holly Holm. The way that Ketlin Vieira was able to beat her was in largely tying her up and holding her up against the face and against the cage and preventing her from really getting her offense going. And Yana Santos is a fighter who has some solid grappling. The way I kind of wrote it down in my notes here is you have Holly Holm, who has good takedown defense and stand-up ability, but she's old and she doesn't have much finishing ability at this point. You have Yana Kunitskaya Santos, who has good takedowns and grappling, but not much striking, and she's had a long layoff at this point. So it's really hard to decide where this is going to go. Actually, coming into this, I was going to take Holly Holm, but I actually am going to switch. I'm going to take Yana Santos, go against the grain, go with the underdog here. At 41 and a half years old, Holly Holm, I think to a certain degree, pushing her up against the fence is going to be a problem, because if Holly Holm can't maintain the distance that she needs in order to get her striking off, and Yana doesn't, in women's MMA, doesn't necessarily have to get her to the ground in order to be effective with the grappling. She could do stand-up grappling, get in the clinch, be up against the cage, and make this fight really boring for us watchers, but end up getting out with a win. I think Yana Santos is going to want, especially in only 3 rounds, I think especially in the first round, she's going to want to close that distance, get close, tie Holly up against the cage, maybe get some lactic acid into her muscles, tie her out there, and then just continue to do that. Keep her in a safe situation. If she can get Holly Holm to the ground, it's not like Holly Holm's getting any younger, and I don't expect to see every version here on after of Holly Holm that we see in the cage. I don't expect to see that get better, better, and better. I expect to see a little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less. You also add in the fact that Ketlin Vieira, there's a win 2 years ago, but a win under the belt of Yana Kunitskaya over the same person who 9 months ago, Holly Holm lost a split decision to. I think it would be a bad decision for Yana Kunitskaya to keep some space and try to just purely stand and strike with Holly Holm. But if this goes to the ground, I'm going to give it a little bit more to Yana Kunitskaya. The age, I'm going to obviously give to Yana Santos, and I think she's going to have that ability. I think, to a certain degree, Ketlin Vieira has shown the game plan to potentially beating the 41-plus-year-old Holly Holm at this point. So going into it, I was going to side with Holly Holm because I thought it was pretty clear-cut. Yeah, she's got better striking. She's got good takedown defense. It's not going to go to the ground. She's going to piece her up for 3 rounds. But I think after looking at it a little bit longer, I'm going to have to go with Holly Holm to get the loss here to Yana Santos. And also, just as an aside, you have Chael Sonnen throwing a wrench into everything, saying, "Oh, Holly Holm and John Jones and Shevchenko, and they're in this love triangle and yada yada yada." So maybe that's kind of on her mind a little bit. Now it's probably a stretch. 86% of Tapology is going with Holly Holm. I'm going with the underdog pick, Yana Santos, at plus 170 to get this one done.
Yeah, I do want to just go back a little bit. I did mention that Holly Holm's kicks are a staple of her game, and you did say, yeah, primarily a boxer. But the reason I said that is because that head kick of Ronda Rousey always sticks out to me.
Well, Ronda was obviously not expecting it, right? Not expecting it
true.
From the boxer, and then bang, hits it, just like Leon Edwards is going to the body, going to the body, going to the body, going to the body, boom, I come up top. And the other interesting thing, just to go back to UFC 286 for a second, in the 4th or the 5th round there, Leon landed a flush head kick where you have Kamaru going down to block the body with both arms, and he landed a flush head kick, and it was fine, bounced right off him. And then there was another picture, I forget where it was, but a nice clean body kick lands because Kamaru Usman protecting the head. And somebody put, well, at least he's protecting his head now, so fair enough.
Yeah, but that body kick I thought was actually going to bring him down because the noise from that, like the noise.
And you saw him kind of crumble a little bit. Like,
yeah,
I think it was in the 1st or 2nd round. You see him go like, oh shit, like that hurts.
Yeah, that was brutal. But yeah, I'm still sticking with Holly Holm. I think we're getting to that point in her career. And this is the difference maker between her and like a Wonder Boy. Great stand-up fighters in their 40s, where Holly Holm looks like she's probably nearing retirement, has talked about a boxing career, at some point, which, I guess that makes sense in the world that we have now with boxing, where it's more of a gimmick than anything. But, I think maybe you see Holly Holm go out on a win, retire, and move on to another sport. But maybe that's a stretch too. But next up, main event, super hyped for this one. Chito Vera versus Corey Sandhagen. This is a really tough fight to pick, in my opinion. And my reason for saying that is because, you know, you look at Chito Vera's past couple of wins, right? The Dominic Cruz fight. Rob Font was an absolute battering from Chito Vera. And then you look at like Frankie Edgar and Dominic Cruz are kind of telling for me, where Chito Vera moves really well. He's downloading everything. You know, he's throwing a few strikes, but he's letting his opponent kind of dictate the dance a little bit early on in the fight. And then Corey Sandhagen is just all action, nonstop action from start to finish, extreme cardio, crazy striking, like in terms of creativity, combinations. You know, he's got a long reach. He's got a 70-inch reach, although both men have the same reach in this one. Maybe it just seems long because Corey is, you know, a little bit taller for a bantamweight. But I'm a huge Chito Vera fan, so this pains me, but I don't know how long that downloading strategy can really work out for a guy, you know, where he's watching and he's methodical and everything against a guy like Corey Sandhagen, where like Dominic Cruz in the Chito Vera fight is more about dodging and moving. And for Chito, it was, okay, if I throw this, I know where Dom's going to move his head. With Corey Sandhagen, it's a little bit different because he's not like super defensive in the and about moving his feet and moving his head in the way that Dominic Cruz is. I don't think he presents as much of an opportunity to like throw something faint and then come up with you know, like the front kick against Frankie Edgar or you know, the head kick like he did against Dominic Cruz. Styles make fights. You know, I think Corey Sandhagen is just a little bit too much pressure, and you know, he's going to be throwing too much, and he presents too much of a variety when he's fighting. So this is a really tough one, though. This is a really tough one to pick. I think I'm going to have to go with Corey Sandhagen here, though, just because I don't think that Chito's typical strategy is going to work out against Corey. Now, if Chito comes in and it's just like a bang up fight from the go, then maybe you give Chito the advantage because he's a little bit slicker. I don't know. I'm gonna have to go with Corey Sandhagen here, though, as much as that pains me, because I am a huge Chito Vera fan. I hope he gets the win, but I think Corey Sandhagen's gonna get it done. What do you think, Tom?
Well, if you're a huge Chito Vera fan, I'm probably going to make you feel good right now. Corey Sandhagen, he's a guy who, you know, he's going to come out and he's going to throw balls to the wall from the beginning of the fight. And this is a 5-rounder. And you look at that Peter Yan fight, as the fight went on, Corey Sandhagen began to fade a little bit. And even against Song Yadong, he began to fade a little bit as time went on. And he didn't throw as much volume. The thing about Corey Sandhagen, he's a 5'11" at 135 pounds, but that doesn't come from his legs or come from his arms. It really comes from a lot from his torso. And when you have a guy like Chito Vera who loves to beat up the body and throws really fast, snappy leg kicks and really hard overhand rights, I think that's a really bad combination, because Chito can land to the body, and while that kind of may stun Corey for a second, that overhand right is going to be able to land for him. Chito Vera, yes, he does have a bit of that downloading style, but so does Petr Yan. And Petr Yan dropped the first round to Corey Sandhagen, was able to come back and win the previous ones. And then Chito Vera, he's a guy that he's not going to lead in terms of the volume output, but his strikes are just going to have so much more of an impact that I think it's going to be negligible in terms of, like, you'll see that Corey Sandhagen maybe after the second round will have, 40 or 50 strikes landed, and Chito may only have 20 or 30 strikes, but you've seen Corey Sandhagen stumble 2 or 3 times. Chito Vera, up until this point, has had a fantastic chin. And he's one of those guys that has a lot of fights, a lot of IQ, and he's still only 30 years old. I mean, look at it, 15-4 versus 22-7, right? So that's 30 fights under his belt, and he's 30 years old. Corey Sandhagen is 30 years old, and he has 19 fights under his belt. So, he is fighting at elevation, Corey Sandhagen is, but this one is going to be taking place in Texas. So I don't think that that's going to have too much of an impact. Over 5 rounds, we don't really see Chito Vera be a guy who loses cardio. I mean, I think he does marathons 2 or 3 times a week just for fun. So for Chito Vera, he's a guy who actually lands huge power that you don't expect in the 135-pound division. He's hitting Dominic Cruz, and Dominic Cruz was stumbled or dropped 3 or 4 times in that fight before he got knocked out cold in the 4th round by the head kick that was perfectly placed, and that Chito had saw 2 or 3 rounds prior and was setting up. So I think from a fight IQ and an ability to set up and see things, you got to give that type of vision to Chito Vera, and you also got to give him the power. And I'm also going to go out on a limb and give him the precision as well. We're not going to see too much grappling here. And when it comes to cardio, I also kind of want to lean Chito Vera, because Chito Vera is a guy that just doesn't get tired. And, he throws a lot of power, but he doesn't throw a lot of volume, which ultimately means that he's able to conserve that cardio for a longer time. And he's just got endless amounts of gas to be able to throw those power shots. Again, finishing guys late in the fight, finishing Dominic Cruz in the 4th round with a perfectly placed head kick. That can happen at any time. It's not like he's the guy who's going to go out there, stun you, wobble you, and then he's got to rely on his gas tank to be able to land a flurry of shots that someone's have to get in there and stop. So for all of those reasons, I really feel like Marlon Chito Vera is going to be able to get this done. I think he's going to be able to sneak that leg kick onto that long torso of Corey Sandhagen. Corey Sandhagen is going to have to drop those hands because it's going to, after 2 or 3 rounds, that's going to start to really hurt, just like Kamaru Usman did, just like Dominic Cruz did. And Chito's going to be able to find a way in what Corey is doing as he gets as it goes on, as he gets a little more tired, as he starts making mistakes, as he starts being less technical and sound in his defense. You're going to see Chito analyze something, pick it up, and land. And the final point is Corey Sandhagen, his most recent fight against Song Yadong. There were a couple instances where Corey came out. I think he's training with Team Alpha Male too. He's going over there and he's trying to grapple. He's trying to get people to the ground, at least against Song Yadong. But on some of those clinch breaks, Song was rocking Corey Sandhagen. He took a left, he took a right a couple of times that Corey was able to kind of stumble for a second and then come back from. If that's Chito Vera, he goes out. Yeah, Chito Vera has that crazy power in 35, and Corey Sandhagen just, I find, leaves himself open far too much to get hit. And he doesn't, I'm not saying that he doesn't have the chin for it, but he's not against competition. You know, Piotr Jan is not a guy who's known to go out there and just starch people. You know, TJ Dillashaw, and especially as he's getting older, not a guy to go out there and starch people anymore. Frankie Edgar, 2 years ago. You know, these type of guys, Marlon Rounds, like they're not the caliber of opponent that's going to go out there and put people away with one strike. Chito Vera is that guy. You know, he's fighting for his family. I love his dedication and his demeanor and everything about him. He's fast, he's powerful, he's technical, he's smart, intelligent. I'm going, and again, with the amount that Corey gets hit and having that long torso and having those snappy leg kicks from Marlon Chito Vera and that air of confidence that he comes around with, he has those the ability to just put you away, and he knows it. He's so cool. He might be one of the coolest fighters, Chito Vera, just in his overall aura. So I'm going, I mean, his name's Chito, man. Like, I'm going with Chito Vera. It's pretty split here. But I'm going with Chito Vera. I think he's going to get this one done by KO. I think he's going to, you know, maybe to the body, to the head. I think he's going to get it finished. But I think at plus 135, he's an underdog. I'll take that money line all day.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, I
just watched your whole demeanor go, oh, shit.
No, because, I mean, it didn't take much because I am a huge Chito Vera fan, right? And this was more of like a situation where me being a fan wants Chito Vera, and him being the dog wants Chito Vera. But Corey Sandhagen did feel like the smart pick. But I mean, when it comes to Saturday, I'm going to be betting on Chito Vera, and I might as well be honest with myself now. So I'm going to take Chito Vera in this one too, because everything you said is 100% correct. And you know, I hope that strategy of, you know, watching things, setting things up, I hope it does work out for him. It's just Corey Sandhagen is going to throw a flurry of strikes early on. But you're right. If anybody can set up a knockout, it's Chito. And, you know, yeah, I got to be honest with the people. I'd probably be betting him anyway because I'm a huge fan and because of that dog money. So same way I felt about Justin Gaethje last week, honestly, where it's like, I'm a fan of this guy. Dog money. He's getting to that point now, Chito, where you don't really see him as a dog anymore, and the money isn't there as often. You know, like a nice line like this one. And yeah, you know, his aura, his swag, and everything about him is so cool. So yeah, I actually am gonna have to go with Chito Vera here as well. Corey Sandhagen felt like the smart pick, but you know, I think everything he said is 100% correct, and you know, I love the dog money and I love the guy. So, you know, I'm going to go with Chito here as well. Going back on that Corey Sandhagen pick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. You ready to do a little pick rundown?
I'm ready if you are.
Yes, sir. All right. I'm going to tail you on your Trevin Giles pick over Preston Parsons and your pick of CJ Vergara over Daniel Da Silva. I'm also taking Tucker Lutz over Daniel Pineda. I'm going to take Chidi and Njokuani over Albert Duraev. I think that is potentially a good position to have a double chance bet, TKO or by decision. I'm going to go with Manel Kape over Alex Perez. Maycee Barber over Andrea Lee, most likely by decision. Going with Nate Landwehr over Austin Lingo. Prepare for violence if you're watching that fight. I'm going to go with Holm over Yana Santos, no longer Yana Kunitskaya. And I'm going to go with Vera over Corey Sandhagen, potentially by a knockout. He could win the decision fight. See, here's the thing about that one is I think if it goes to decision, I think Corey Sandhagen has the better chance of winning the decision just by picking up those early rounds with Chito's downloading style. But I do like Chito to potentially win, via knockout. But Vera alone at plus 135 is a great pick. What do you got, Tom?
So I'm going to be going with Manel Torres over Trey Ogden, CJ Vergara over the winless inside of the UFC, Daniel Da Silva. I like Trevin Giles to get it done over Preston Parsons. That one's going to be a tightly contended bout at 170, but I mean, Trevin Giles beat Roman Dolidze, so I'm going to be going with him. I do like Tucker Lutz to get it done, but we talked about my apprehensions with that. Chidi Njokuani, I think, gets it done over Abu Duraev. I feel really good about that. And I think Manel Kape gets it done over Alex Perez. I feel really good about that. Maycee Barber, I think, is going to get it done over Andrea Lee, but I do feel that one's probably going to go to decision. Nate Landwehr is going to get it done over Austin Lingo. Going with the underdog money for Yana Santos over Holly Holm. I think she's just going to hold her up against the cage and win that one because that's how women's MMA is decided. And then another 135 pounds, but this side on the men's side, main card fight, Marlon Chito Vera, I think, gets it done TKO or decision by over Corey Sandhagen. Plus money on those two. Excuse me, would love to see add those together. You're probably getting, plus 135 plus, I don't know what Yana Santos is, but I guess we could look it up here, but you add them together, you're probably in the plus 300 money right there. So,
yeah.
or 170 and plus 135, add those together. You're maybe in the threes or the fours. So go ahead and add those together. I like that two fights right there. And you're plus a nice chunk of change.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, looking forward to this card, right? I said before, just looking forward to the main event, but the more that we talk about it, this happens to me every week. Like, when we talk about it, and I hope this happens for the people at home watching as well. As we discuss the fights and what's going to happen, it makes me more excited, right? Like we want to see if our predictions ring true and, just what happens with some of these, especially like Nate Landwehr in the main event. So just a couple of things. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, please. Also, you can check us out on Spotify. If you're not here live with us on Sundays, you can listen to us on Spotify. That'll be up in a little bit. Check us out on your commute, whatever. And then we also put up clips too on YouTube as well. Individual fights clipped up, fight breakdowns and everything, predictions. So you can check those out, or you could find them using the timestamps in our description. And check us out on Men of Order as well. We do a little bit of a quick recap of what we're talking about here, as well as round up all of our content. So if you're looking for our Spotify page, it is picking winners. But if you can't find it, you can find it in our blogs at menoforder.com. Check us out on Twitter. Our personal Twitters are right below our faces, as well as the Pickin' Winners Twitter, which is @_Pickin' Winners on Twitter and Instagram. I'm really looking forward to this card, but more so than that, I'm looking forward to hanging out with you at UFC 288. If you're going to be there, let us know. Thanks for spending your Sunday with us or whenever you're catching this throughout the week. Also, I want to make mention of one more thing. If you happen to take one of our bets, regardless of what you place on it, whatever your units are, feel free to take a screenshot if they win and shout us out on Twitter. We want to get more followers and more subscribers over here. It really helps us out. So please do so. Tom, thanks for being here, man.
Take it easy. Enjoy your week. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you check out towards the end of the week, around Wednesdays or Thursdays, I'll post a short of our pick rundown. There may be some changes with that. You're obviously recording this on a Sunday. Things can happen. Keep an eye out for that. It's gaining a little bit of traction. So let's keep the ball rolling. Everyone have a good week.